Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trench Coat featuring Pandemonium 9 Savage. Cocky Toes. The Cocky Toes.
Eat, fight, eat, fight.
Super hot. Super hot. Super
Fight.
There must be some financial difficulty going on over at Square Enix, as this raid tier has been brought to you by a partnership between them and the Nightmare Demons locked into the basement of Jeff and Anna Bezos. Yoshi P has been spending his money at limbs and nightclubs again, but none of those Oraz members are as big as this P9S. Clock spots are the only marker dance for this fight, but for how simple that is, there are upwards of 4 combinations of how to deal with that clock spot mechanic depending on what class the party leader is and how lazy they feel. DPS versus support rotate is a high point of contention between party finders, so make sure you activate your 3rd grade reading comprehension abilities and read the party finder. Additionally, there are 2 different marker sets floating around that change if your partner is to your left or to your right, depending on which colors are placed where. Although I did find a 3rd one where the markers were so far out that they would actively get you killed, so use your best judgment and remember that there are lines on the floor. Once into the fight, you'll do some early burst and the boss is going to eat the soul of a really angry mage and cast 2 spells at the same time. Anytime the boss is in the mage form, the primary attack will always combine 2 of the 4 elements.
Ice bind you!
Or
Flames take you!
Or the other one, that's green. The first iteration of this attack will always be fire and green, which signals a tank buster that needs to be provoked mid-cast so that each tank gets both a fire hit and a green hit and not 2 of the same. Look at me learning tank mechanics. This will then immediately launch into the most telegraphed of the full party dual cast solves. The first cast will always be a fire hand and an ice hand, which means that the support or DPS players need to rotate to the DPS or support player and take the 2-person stack attack while listening for the loud anime attack that Cocky Toes will call out.
Don't fuck with me! I have the power! Get anime on my side! Wait,
Ice binds you means cuddle up in the center because it's about to get cold as fuck, while flames take you means spread away from the other partners because you don't want anyone seeing you get hot and steamy with one another. The second cast will be a combination of ice and lightning. It's worth noting that ice being included at all means it's going to be an 8-person mechanic, so that dead body in the corner is going to hurt somebody. When it's ice and lightning, everyone goes out to their clock spot and either cuddles up for ice or crawls out to be their own lightning rods as far from everyone else as the outer ice donut allows. Finally, the third cast will once again be ice and fire, but it will be the opposite of whatever the first cast was, so you can absolutely pre-position yourself unless your short-term memory rivals that of Dory from Finding Nemo. Moving forward, the next mechanic after the burst window is the Martialist phase. In this, you'll need to group up with your color partner at whichever of your 2 color spots would get you curb stomped into a snowbank. Wait for the unmitigatable purple knockback to interrupt you right as you would hit the climax of your burst. Cocky Toes really knows how to edge your DPS numbers as you get knocked to the edge. Following that, there will be some number of little Rhode Island-sized trails that will explode into big fuck you Texas-sized danger zones. This will be accompanied by, you know what, I'm being a little American right now, aren't I? As recompense for my audience across the pond, I'm going to try this mechanic over again. Following the snowbank, that filthy American Cocky Toes is going to be dumping our finest Earl Grey all into the harbor. First, some number of tea bags are going to slide across the ground until they explode into flavor, which is so intense that you'll just be dying to get a taste of it. He'll then either kick front with a U or out his arse, depending on if you cast front or rear strikes respectively. This will all be accompanied by a telegraphed sco in scone or a delectable don't, where, trickily, you should do the opposite of what the name suggests. To add insult to injury, the last few bags of PG tips are going to spill out for a few more explosions of flavor, and you'll have to switch between being in or out for the next hits. Back to the American side of things, you'll resort to a 2-party system for light party healer stacks. If one of your healers dies, you should all scatter and vote independent so that only 2 of you end up dying as a result of the election instead of everyone. Boy, that's enough political humor for this episode, so let's go back to the Brits for a second. So the biggest roadblock of a mechanic in this fight, at least in the Western world, is figuring out this FIFA World Cup bullshit mechanic. Cocky Toes is going to use those fancy feet to kick some balls labeled with odd numbers and then punch some people with both small red and big blue AoEs. What's wild to me is that the fat-ass Americans of all people seem to be the most willing to run around the edge of the map in the Oppo strat, whereas the JP strat is to do as little moving as possible. I'm a lazy piece of shit and absolutely can't stand Aether's insistence on using strats that rely on people hitting the sprint button to do anything other than dodge a perfectly avoidable mechanic. So my little primal data center pansy ass is going to use the JP strat, which involves you standing in only 4 places. That is all it boils down to, standing in 4 places, and most of them are just the same place. So when Lev in strike goes off, you need to get Lev out of the way. 4 of you are going to get red numbers and 4 balls are going to get blue numbers. If you're not on the red team, you're on the blue team. The boss will also shortly after go untargetable, so you don't have the excuse of your 15,000 flashing damage buttons distracting you because you shouldn't be pressing any of them. Regardless of which team you're on, you want to find where the 5 and 7 blue balls are and stand between those. This will be the home base for the first 2 attacks. The home base for attacks 3 and 4 will be between where the 1 and 3 blue balls are now before they get the crap kicked out of them like a delinquent who sees a metal can on the side of the road. You will always stand in the current home position unless one of the following is true. You are on the red team and it is your turn to soak an angry fire puddle by stepping out to the edge of the arena near the home position. You are on the red team and it is your turn to soak the ice stick by figuring out which ice wall the ball is about to get kicked into. You are on the blue team and it is your turn to praise the sun on the opposite side of the arena. For red team members, that requires a little bit of math. Take your red number and divide by 2. Hold up, I can see I've lost you already. Let me see if I can fix that. Alright, yep, that should do the trick. So divide your red number by 2, your new number tells you which round you are going to be soaking the angry puddle in. Number 2 goes first, number 4 goes second, etc, etc. Now to figure out which ice stick requires a little bit more complicated of an equation. First you'll need to subtract 4 from your number. If your number is now less than 1, add 8. Now divide by 2. Now you should have a number between 1 and 4 that tells you which ice stick you have to soak. So 6 minus 4 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 minus 4 plus 8 divided by 2 is 4. See? Easy. Lastly, for the blue team people who have to praise the sun, you don't really get a number to follow. Just know that you'll always be far away from wherever the home stack is. This is mostly a call-out post for whomever is the third praiser of the blessed blue sun, because half the time in Prague they're just going to go to wherever the second sun praiser went and whip the entirety of the people stacked in the home position. Let all of those positions unravel and then get ready for another ice, fire, and lightning. Only now there's no telling which pairing you're going to get. You simply have to remember the age-old prophecy. Disturb not the harmony of fire, ice, or lightning. Look at the boss, see his hands, and if you know how to, you can read the wiggling of his toes to know if it's going to be an out or an in. Following this, we enter the dog phase. Nope, that was some bad phrasing. 4 swirling dust storms will lock off either the cardinals or intercardinals as 4 meteors prepare to drop down into the open spots. Group up with your party in the center and remind your melees that they have a feint button. We then harken back to ye old 3rd grade reading comprehension sentiment as far as who's getting slimed like it's a 90s Nickelodeon television game show and who is getting shocked like me after seeing the cost of canned beans at the grocery store. By and large, I see it as DPS getting the electrical shocks first, but nothing is ever promised. When it's your turn to bait, point your cone at the swirling storm of dust like a machinist points their gun at the camera of their adventurer plate. When it's your turn to get slimed, huddle up under the first cracked rock clockwise of the North Waymark. Assuming that nobody misinterpreted point your cone at the dust storm to mean use HMO6 rock smash, you'll be left with 2 uncracked rocks for the late-ass 5th meteor. One of these will be marked with a red symbol, and the other rock will need to be used as a line-of-sight shield before it too gets cracked and explodes all over somebody. This leads into another tank buster mechanic of some kind, and then into another martialist phase. Only this time there's a little less to worry about. Get knocked back with your color partner and avoid the telegraphed areas and explosions at the ends of the lines. Alone, none of that is any worse than the previous martialist phase. I'd dare even say it's easier. The part that is significantly less easy is that this is immediately followed with an 8-man check in the form of a completely random mage phase, meaning you have to dodge all of the martialist crap while trying to stay with your partner and out of the ice-bind now crawl flames take nonsense. The final new mechanic is the half-limit cut half-tank bait that is all gas, no brakes. I'd liken it to Cachexia 2 from P9S, but Cachexia at least had a pretty forgiving window for throwing out your tank LB instead of actually learning it. Chimeric Succession does not have nearly that same comfortability, and it comes right after a common healer LB spot, getting nuked by Proteans after not having 8 players for the 8-player check. Needless to say, you're probably going to have to actually learn this one. So some people swear up and down that there is some method to the madness on who gets the limit cut dice markers and who does not. The 4 closest players, the 4 furthest players, the 4 players most likely to commit war crimes based on their Google Chrome search history. Who's to say? All I know is that if you get the limit cut markers, you need to end up in the middle-ish while the other 4 players run south-ish. For the 3rd and final time, it's important that you read the party finder to know if the odd-numbered limit cuts are going to the northeast or to the northwest, because odd numbers to the odd way mark is often incorrect, and while I kinda disagree, that's not going to stop you from getting flamed. 1 and 3 alternate in one corner, 2 and 4 alternate in the other. These circles are bigger than Xenos' ego, so don't start running before you're supposed to. The other 4 players are going to play a really quick game of Simon Says, Dance Remains Rejoice. Using the same front and rear strike cast from the martialist phase, the boss will leap onto the group of players furthest away, which is hopefully in the south, and then you'll need to run in a direction to spin him the way that doesn't get the limit cut people killed. For rear strikes, that means run to the middle, and for front strikes, that means run out to the singular pixel you left between the boss and the kill plane's edge. Once the boss is locked in place and the limit cut is done, you can run back to the middle and it's all button mashing and muscle memory from there. A dual spell Fire Ice Lightning, a raid wide, another dual spell, a raid wide, a dual spell, and then instead of a satisfying pattern continuing raid wide, we get another Fire Green dual spell, which is also going to be awarding your melee DPS with a button pushing award, while your off tank forgets that there are buttons on their keyboard besides 1, 2, and 3. After that is one more dual spell and one more raid wide, and then the enrage mechanic. But so long as you didn't lose half of your DPS on every mechanic, congrats, you've completed P9S. Good luck fighting over that ring coffer. If anyone needs the bracelets, I think I've gotten 5 of them by now. Go watch a real guide.